In almost zero visibility, the weapon offers little, if any, protection. Clark turns to me with an expression of muted alarm, trying to gauge my reaction. Then, da-thump, da-thump, da-thump. "Go!" Clark yells, dashing through the berry bushes to a faint game trail. As I run behind him into the thicket, sharp branches tear at my face and rain gear. All I can see is Clark's backside a few feet in front of me. A heavy growling bark explodes around us. Woof, 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 woof. I break into a sprint with my arms held up to my head to protect myself from whatever beast is nearly upon us. The barking resumes, louder now, and the terror spikes. Then I realize it's Clark making the noises. He stops and cups his hands to his mouth. "Hey, bear! Hey, grizzly, grizzly, grizzly!" He hollers at the top of his voice, a ploy to ward off any bears nearby. Clark drops his arms and ducks into a waist-high, tunnel-like trail in the brush. We're forced to crawl on our hands and knees, past sprawling blooms of wet, rotting skunk cabbage, making loud noises and occasionally having to untangle ourselves from the branches that snag our packs. I realize that at any moment we might be ambushed and mauled by a startled grizzly. I'm awash in regret for what feels like a foolish undertaking, revisiting the perch of a legendary creature that also happens to be in the heart of bear country. We come into a relatively dry enclosure of gargantuan Sitka spruces. Beneath a few of the trees, the forest floor is packed down. Clark wanders over to one of the impressions and moves his open palm over it. "Daybed," he says. "A mother and cub were just here." Clark gets up and heads into the younger, brushy alder forest at the edge of the spruces, barking and yelping like a man possessed. I follow into yet another gauntlet of thorns. The novelty of exploring one of the last intact wilderness regions on the planet gives way to silent cursing. And then, reprieve. We emerge, bleary-eyed from the darkness, onto a bright, open estuary dotted with driftwood, mature berry bushes, and half-eaten salmon carcasses. Several bear trails interweave through the tall sedge grass. The invisible creek we were following appears, emptying into a wide, fast-moving river running gray with glacial silt into a fjord-like Pacific Channel to our west. Clark stops, rests the butt of his gun on the ground, and turns to me with the smiling satisfaction of a man grateful to have come through. "Nickel Squanny," he says. Before us is the confluence of the Neklitscani River and the Bella Coola River, which drains an epic 50-mile-long valley of the same name. We are in the Great Bear Rainforest, a wilderness region the size of Ireland, located along Canada's rugged British Columbia coast. The partially protected area, touted as the largest expanse of unspoiled temperate rainforest left in the world, extends some 250 miles between Vancouver Island and the Alaska Panhandle. Days earlier, I had arrived in the town of Bella Coola, a Newhalk Nation community situated just a short distance from where we're standing. A series of serendipitous encounters led me to Clark, who people told me had once seen a Sasquatch, a member of the alleged race of half-man, half-ape giants believed by some to inhabit the wilds of North America. The reputed hair-covered bipeds, known more colloquially as Bigfoots, don't officially exist. No physical specimen, living or dead, has ever been produced. Because of that, mainstream science scoffs at the idea of such creatures, which are also considered by most people to be no more real than fairies or gnomes. But like other residents of the Great Bear Rainforest, Clark Hans, a soft-spoken 51-year-old father of 4 and erstwhile hunting guide turned artist, is convinced that the animals exist, and that he saw one. He agreed to take me to the location of his sighting, a spot he had been too afraid to revisit since the incident 30 years prior. On that day in the spring of 1983, Clark had been on a duck hunting trip in the Bella Coola estuary with 2 of his cousins. Upon arrival there, the group decided to split up. Clark would remain at the mouth of the Bella Coola River, and the others would head up the Neklitscani River. They agreed to meet later back at their boat. Clark remembers that day as being eerily quiet. Nothing moved. All day I never seen a bird, I never seen a duck, I never heard nothing.